Start super easy and start super small. Start with a short ride. Start with a ride that's easy and accessible to you. The last thing you want to do right out of the gate is start with a really hard ride that is going to make you never want to get on your bike again. Welcome to the Biking Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Smith, and I lost 50 pounds riding my bike by focusing on what my body can do. Now, I teach other women how to do the same. I am obsessed with completely flipping the script on weight loss so that we can work out to feel good and feel strong. If you are ready to stop dieting, learn how to appreciate your body, and have fun riding your bike, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, my friend. Welcome back. I am so happy that you are here. When I started this podcast, I really wasn't sure what to expect, and the response that I've been getting has been nothing short of amazing. I am so grateful to you for being here, for listening, for rating the podcast, for reviewing the podcast, for sharing it with a friend, because I want to say this has been my dream for 5, 6, 7 years or so now, at least. And to hear that you're listening, that what I'm saying is resonating with you, that it is encouraging you to ride and it's encouraging you to think differently about your bodies is literally just everything. So I just want to thank you for being here and want to say I'm so glad you're here and I can't wait to continue on this journey together. So thank you so much. Today, what I want to talk to you about is how to get back on the bike. And I'm talking about whether it's been months or years. Honestly, the process for getting back on the bike is pretty much the same. I cannot tell you how many times women say to me, "Oh my gosh, I loved riding my bike so much when I was a kid. I don't even know where to begin in terms of getting back on the bike." Or women have said, "I love my Peloton, but I just can't seem to find the time to ride." Or I love my bike, but I just haven't been on it in a really long time. So if that is you, my friend, whether you've been off the bike for a few months or for a number of years, this is absolutely going to be the podcast for you. I personally haven't been on the bike much at all because it's been winter. And so I've only been riding in the basement on my Peloton, which, by the way, I absolutely love. And there will certainly be an episode in the future on the Peloton bike. But this is the time of year where I'd like to start transitioning to biking outside and biking on the road. And so I recently signed up again for a charity ride that I do every year. It's the Bikes Fight Cancer Ride. If you want to join me, it's out of Deerfield, Mass. I'll put a link in the show notes. But anyway, I digress. Once again, I've signed up for this ride, and so now I got to get back on my bike, and spring is officially here, and it's time, and the person who loves riding bikes, is finding and feeling some resistance and coming up with some excuses about why now's not the right time. So I'm just here to share that this episode is just as much for me as it might be for you, and we are all in this together. So maybe you've taken time off the bike because the winter months and you don't ride outside during the winter. Maybe you've had an injury that's sidelined you for a little bit. Maybe you just haven't felt like riding your bike. You've been moving your body a different way. Or it could be that you just don't have a bike to ride right now, and that's okay too, because maybe you haven't ridden your bike since a kid and you're just kind of thinking about jumping back in and seeing what this is all about. So in this episode, we're going to just talk about everything you need to know to prepare your mind and your body and to get back on the bike, because it's both, right? Like, we need to have the physical things in order to do it, but we also need to have the will and the motivation and the drive to do it. So we're going to start off by talking about some of the basics that you actually need to get back on the bike. So you need a bike, right? It's very hard to ride a bike if you don't have one. So you need to get your hands on a bike. If you don't have one, my best advice to you is to think about what kind of bike riding you want to do, and then get a bike that fits you. Because I love a new shiny bike just like the next person, but the most important thing is that your bike suits you and the kind of riding you want to do. But you don't really need to have this like super expensive top of the line bike. It just needs to fit you and be suited for the type of activity you want to do. So like, for example, if you try to take a mountain bike on the road, you're going to have a really bad time. And I know this from experience because the first bike I purchased as an adult was a mountain bike. And I tried to ride it on the road and it sucked because it wasn't designed for that purpose. So I didn't need a fancy, expensive road bike or a hybrid bike, but I needed a road bike or a hybrid bike if I wanted to ride on the road. So if you're unsure of what kind of bike you need, my best advice to you is to go to your local bike shop. They are so helpful and so useful, and they're creating lifelong customers because they know that they want you to keep coming to them for all of your biking needs. So they want you to actually like the bike. And they know that if you don't like the bike, you're going to bring the sucker back. If you're unsure of what kind of bike to get, first of all, think about what kind of riding you want to do. And then secondly, I would go to your local bike shop, make sure you check some Google reviews, make sure they're well respected, well rated, and head on over and just say, hey, I'm thinking of riding. This is the kind of riding I want to do. Either I want to ride on bike trails on the road, I want to ride, in the woods, whatever it is, they can help you figure out what kind of bike is going to work for you. Now, my next piece of advice is to make sure that the bike fits you. Again, it doesn't matter necessarily how expensive the bike is. What matters is that the bike fits your body. You do not want to be riding a bike that is too big or too small. You're going to get injured. Either you're going to fall off the thing because you can't balance because it's too tall, or you're going to hurt your body in other ways because you're trying to pedal your knees on a bike that's too short and your knees are doing the wrong movement. So those are the kinds of things that you really should be thinking about when you're thinking about what kind of bike you should have. It should fit you and it should suit the activity you're doing. And then finally, if you have a bike that fits you and suits your activity already, please make sure that you get it tuned up. There is nothing worse than going out for your first bike ride in a really long time and getting a flat tire or, your chain not working properly and dropping a bunch, dropping gears. So make sure that you also bring your bike to a local bike shop just to get it tuned up. That's going to be really essential. So if this seems daunting to you, it really doesn't need to be. Don't make it any more complicated than it absolutely has to be. So you just need a bike that fits, one that's suited to your activity, and just make sure it's tuned up. That's all. Okay, so that's the physical apparatus you need to ride your bike. You need a bike. In terms of indoor cycling, it's actually a little bit easier in my opinion because those bikes are adjustable and they are meant to adjust to a wide range of people. So if you have the desire to ride your bike indoors or ride an indoor bike, then the great thing about those is that they're adjustable. So if you get a Peloton, for example, you can adjust it to suit your needs and suit your body. It may not be as perfect of a fit as a bike that's actually kind of tailored to you, but it will be one that hopefully can get a good enough fit so that you don't get injured. The second thing that you need is you need the proper clothing. You need the proper attire. So if you're riding your bike outside, for example, and it's early spring, like it is right here in New England right now, you're probably going to need warmer weather gear for now than you will, come May, June, July, when the weather gets a little bit warmer. So just make sure that you are purchasing the clothing that suits the temperature of the riding that you're going to be doing. And then you absolutely should consider padded bike shorts. One of the biggest misconceptions with people who ride bikes is that in order to be comfortable on the seat of their bike, which we call the saddle, they need to have like a really cushy saddle. And the reality is what you need is padded bike shorts. It seems a little bit kind of counterintuitive, if you will, but ultimately it's the shorts that are going to make the experience. When the seat is too padded or too big, it actually increases friction and it doesn't work well for you. So you want to make sure that you get some padded bike shorts. My favorite brand that I recommend to new riders or people who have been off the bike for a while is Pearl Izumi, because the padding or the chamois in those shorts tends to be pretty substantial. The padded bike shorts are 100% the way to go. So dress for the weather and dress for your bum. You want your bum to be comfortable, or at least as comfortable as possible, because your sit bones are not going to be used to supporting your weight if you haven't been riding in a while. So those are kind of the physical things that you need. You need the bike and you need clothes that are the bike and the clothes that are suitable for the type of biking you want to do. Now that you have that kind of simple physical stuff set aside, now you need to actually figure out what is going on in your mind that is keeping you from getting back on the bike. So maybe you don't have any resistance here. Maybe you're excited. Maybe you're ready to go. Maybe you've been waiting for this warmer weather, or you've just been waiting for someone to give you that little push like me to say, go ahead and get back on your bike. But if you're not like that, if you're a little bit like me, then you might have some resistance to getting back on the bike, getting out on the road. If you've been riding inside all winter long, sometimes that transition can be a little bit daunting. So my next piece of advice, my next tip is for you to expect that you might have some resistance. Expect that you're going to be a little bit daunted by, oh, I got to get my bike ready, and then I have to wear these clothes, and maybe I should just go for a walk because it's so much easier to throw on some sneakers. So if that's the only way you're going to move your body, then by all means, do the sneakers and go for a walk. But if you really want to ride your bike, expect that you're going to have to psych yourself up a little bit, that you're going to be a little bit uncomfortable and you're not going to want to do it. And I want you to understand that if you sit around waiting for the motivation to ride your bike, it may never come, because the definition of motivation is the desire to do something. And that might not just come for you. Expect that you're going to have some resistance, that your brain is going to come up with a whole buttload of excuses for why now's not the right time to get on your bike. And then let yourself be a little bit uncomfortable, acknowledge that, and just say, okay, it's cold out. It's colder than I'd want it to be. I have to do some work to get my bike ready. I don't really want to do all those things, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I know that I want to get on my bike. And I know that there's nothing like that first great ride of the season or that first nice ride after you've been off the bike for months. I know that I want that feeling. I know I want the feeling of being outside, of flying down hills, and I know that I'm only going to get there if I do the less exciting things like get my bike physically ready to get out there on the road. So know that you're going to probably face some resistance, that your brain is going to kind of get in the way of you actually going out there and getting on the bike. And that is totally normal. It happens to all of us. Just acknowledge it and say, okay, you're not going to like certain parts of this, but you're going to go ahead and do it anyway. Which brings me to my next tip, which is to start super easy and start super small. Start with a short ride. Start with a ride that's easy and accessible to you. The last thing you want to do right out of the gate is start with a really hard ride that is going to make you never want to get on your bike again. And I actually have a little bit of experience with this myself. The very first ride I ever did on my road bike was really hard. It was 10 miles. I was riding with my husband. He was being great about everything, but it was definitely like way beyond what I probably should have been doing at that time. And I was lucky though, because I was just so determined. And when I went down those hills, it was so exhilarating that I wanted to do it some more. But ideally, you want to kind of ease into it. And when I say ease into it, I mean, if all you can really do is hop on your bike and go 2.5 minutes down the road and 2.5 minutes back, start there. Start with what is easy and what is accessible to you. Kind of keep it really flat. You don't want to be going up and down huge hills. Keep it short and kind of leave yourself wanting a little bit more. It's always great when you get off the bike that first time and you're like, you know what, next time I'm going to go a little bit farther, as opposed to, oh my goodness, like that was great, I feel good, but I went and did way too much. So keep it super easy, keep it small. Now that we're kind of thinking about, okay, I've got my bike ready, I've got the clothes I need, I know that I need to kind of ease into this, I know that I'm going to have resistance, but I'm going to do it anyway. What are my next steps? Well, you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan for when you're going to ride. My best suggestion to you is to decide, basically each week, how often you're going to ride that week, how long, how far, and make a really simple, easy, doable plan that you can stick with. It doesn't make any sense to go months and months without riding your bike and then decide, okay, well, I'm going to ride 6 days this week for 2 hours a day. That's too much. You're going to get discouraged and you're going to give up or you're going to just be really, really sore. But either way, that's not the best way to kind of ease back into being on the bike. You need a reasonable, doable plan. Decide how many times you're going to ride per week. Decide if you're going to ride indoors or outdoors. Decide how long in either duration or the number of miles that each ride is going to be. And then look at your schedule and see where these bike rides fit in. Because you might have this goal to ride 5 times a week, but right now you only have time in your schedule to ride 3 times a week. So then you're only going to ride 3 times a week. And then as you get that habit kind of underway, then you can think about adding in more rides. But you don't want to set unreasonable goals for yourself right out the gate, because then you're going to be so much more likely to give up. If you skip a ride, and you will, I promise you will, life will get in the way. The most important thing is not to beat yourself up. Forgive yourself, move on. It's okay. You will always have another opportunity to ride. You can always ride again tomorrow if it didn't work out today. You can always do, 3 rides next week if you could only fit in 2 rides this week. Just let it go. Okay? It doesn't actually help for you to beat yourself up. If it did help, that would be one thing, maybe. Still doesn't feel good. But it doesn't actually help. It just has a tendency to discourage you to the point where you think that you can't do this and you might as well give up. If you already ride regularly and you just kind of took a break over the winter, you want to also potentially consider working with a coach, working with a cycling coach, finding a cycling training plan. I know that I often like to get ready for the spring by following a Peloton training plan. They have a couple of different plans. One's build your power zones and the other's discover your power zones, those sorts of things. And I know that those particular plans do a really good job of getting me ready to be riding out on the road. So one thing you can consider is doing a training plan. But again, if you have to skip a ride, if you have to even skip a week, the whole idea is to not beat yourself up over it. Which brings me to my next tip, which is consider riding with somebody, consider riding with a friend, joining a group, or even getting a coach. When you have some degree of accountability for riding your bike, even if it's just a Facebook group like the Biking Wellness Facebook community, I'll be sure to link it in the show notes. If you say, hey, I'm going for a ride today, then just knowing that people out there in the universe know you're planning to ride today can go so far in terms of actually getting you on the bike. So consider riding with a friend. A lot of times I love riding with friends. Sometimes when I'm having a hard time motivating myself, I'll reach out to a friend and I'll say, hey, do you want to ride bikes together? Let's set a time because I'm having a really hard time getting myself on the bike. So riding with a friend is also a great way to hold yourself accountable. And you also can consider getting a cycling coach. One of the people that I always recommend is my friend Kristen Bonkowski. She is the founder of Femme Cyclist, and she's also a certified USA cycling coach. I'll link her information in the show notes too, because I feel like she does this wonderful job of putting together training plans that take into account that you have a life beyond riding your bike. I think a lot of times, a lot of the training plans and coaches out there are kind of approaching it from the perspective of riding bikes is your life. And I'm sorry, that's just not most of us. For those of us that it is, then you probably already are working with a coach or you're already self-motivated. So you might want to consider looking for a coach and paying a coach. But there's plenty of free, completely free support out there too, like the Biking Wellness Facebook community, like this podcast that you can use to keep yourself motivated. I mean, honestly, if you're just listening to this podcast every week and doing nothing else and not even getting on your bike, well, first of all, you're also getting a lot of wellness tips too. So if you aren't riding right now, that's not the end of the world. But also, if you're listening to this podcast, you're keeping biking and wellness front of mind. And it's going to be so much easier for you to jump in when you are determined and ready than it will be if you're not doing anything at all. So even just listening to this podcast every week is a great way to kind of stay in tune with thoughts related to your wellness and riding your bike. The last tip that I want to give you for getting back on your bike is to remember how good it feels when you have accomplished that ride. Think about how good it feels after the ride. That post-ride glow is real. It always feels good. I love just kind of sitting back with a protein shake after a really hard ride and just feeling that sense of accomplishment, that sense of joy of getting out there, of getting on my bike, of, all of the like dopamine and endorphins that you release when you are active. The thing is that there are very, very few times where you are going to go out there and ride your bike and get back home and be like, God, I wish I did not do that. Nobody does that, right? We always feel really good when we get out there, when we ride and we do something instead of, sitting around on the couch. Sitting around on the couch feels easy and good in the moment, but think about how nice it is to sit on that couch after you've done the ride. People tell me all the time that my energy about biking, about wellness, about weight loss, about life is so positive and so kind of like happy. I want you to know, like just between you and me, that I struggle just as much as everyone else. I had to put my clothes on to work out today before I started recording this podcast because I knew that if I didn't do that, there's no way I would ride my bike today. There's no way that I would do any strength training today. So I have to do all of these things to get myself on the bike too sometimes. But when I go through and I think about all of the tips that I just gave you, it makes it so much easier to just do it. Okay? So please, please, please know that I'm not perfect, that I struggle too, and that we all meet resistance when we're trying to get back on the bike. But when you just rediscover that joy of riding your bike, just like when you rode your bike when you were a kid, when you moved your body when you were a kid, that makes it easier. And that makes it that much more likely for you to get on it, to get back on the bike. So what are you waiting for? Really, grab your bike, get on your bike, enjoy the ride. Oh, thank you so much for listening to another episode, my friends. I had so much fun today talking to you all about how to get back on the bike. I would love for you to rate and review and follow the podcast and share it with a friend. I'm so excited to continue just to grow this biking wellness community together. So until next time, have a fantastic time on your bike and ride on. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Biking Wellness Podcast. Be sure to head on over to sassy.com/guide, sasscy.com/guide, to get my completely free lose weight biking quick start guide so that you can get started with simple, doable weight loss today. That's sasscy.com/guide.